My name is Sarah Offelt. I am the superintendent of Powderhorn State Park. I'm here in Port O'Connor, Texas. I've been the superintendent for about not quite 4 months. I'm the first superintendent, so this property was recently transferred to Texas Parks and Wildlife back in October. Powderhorn is a very special place. It's actually one of the largest conservation land acquisitions in Texas history. In terms of dollar amount, I'm not sure about acreage wise, but in total the park and the wildlife management area were one large purchase, and they combined make about 17,000 acres. So of that, about 15,000 is the wildlife management area. So it's not open to the public yet. It will be in the future. We'll be developing camping areas and day use areas, hiking trails, things like that down the road. But for now, it's largely just managing and maintaining what we have and learning about the property, about the species that are here and things like that. So up until the last few years, it's been privately held pretty much since its discovery.
Can you tell us more about that discovery? Who owned it? How long ago?
Sure. So if we go way back, let's see, in about the 1600s, Spanish explorers came over and discovered this area. Across the bay, if you see those buildings kind of behind me, that is the town of Indianola, which was at one point the second largest port of entry in Texas after Galveston. It was, some say, slated to be the largest port of entry and surpass Galveston, but it was wiped out by a hurricane, and then another hurricane, and eventually they just kind of decided that wasn't in the future for Indianola. Later on, where we know a lot about the history of Powderhorn starts in about the 30s, when probably the longest standing owners took ownership. That was the Denman family. They were friends and colleagues of the Clayburghs and the Kings from the King Ranch. So that's kind of how some of the exotic species got introduced to the park, at the same time that the King Ranch was importing various species onto their ranch. They were trying the same ones and different ones, and importing native species as well onto Powderhorn. So the Denmans held the property for many years. The primary use during that time was cattle ranching. It transferred hands a few times before the acquisition for Texas Parks and Wildlife, which was not actually directly done by Texas Parks and Wildlife. Since we are a state agency, we aren't always the quickest at moving money around, so it was a transaction by a variety of conservation partners. I'm not going to list them all because I will always forget one, and I don't want to do that, but there were a handful, one of them being the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation. That's kind of our nonprofit partners. So that happened in the mid-2010s, and then just in last October of 2021, the final part of the park property got transferred to Texas Parks and Wildlife. So when the property was owned by the Denman family, this was their primary residence. There were a few other residences on the property. There used to be one over there, and a few other places as well, but this is the only one that is still standing, and it was very lovingly restored by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation prior to handing this property over to the department. So it's in fantastic shape. It's beautiful. That porch is my favorite place to eat lunch or take a conference call or anything like that. A volunteer colleague of mine once said it's the best, he said it's the best porch in the state of Texas. And I have to agree.
Thank you. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome.